You haven't heard from him in months. Pure silence, complete stillness, not a single word has come your way. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, he is back. A message arrives, a call comes through, or maybe just a quiet view on your story that shows he has been watching from a distance the entire time. Your heart is doing something complicated, something heavy, something you were not prepared for and did not ask for at all. Your mind is moving fast with many thoughts. Your chest feels tight with emotion. And somewhere underneath all of that, a part of you already knows this moment matters in a real way. Before you respond, before you decide anything at all, before you even let yourself feel the full weight of what this means, you need to understand the only real reasons a man comes back after months of complete silence. Stay with this because what you are about to hear will change the way you see everything about this situation and about yourself. If you want the real reasons why he came back after months of silence, hit like so more people can see this. What you are feeling right now is not weakness or anything like that. It is not a sign that you haven't healed enough yet. It is not proof that you haven't moved far enough forward in life. It is not evidence that you are still stuck somewhere you shouldn't be after all this time. It is your nervous system recognizing a deep and significant emotional attachment that was there before. One that was real, one that mattered deeply, one that had weight in your life, one that never fully closed, no matter how many days passed by quietly. Research in psychology shows us clearly that when a genuine emotional bond forms between two people, the brain does not simply erase it because the messages stop coming suddenly. That connection does not disappear at all. It lives in your nervous system and stays there. It lives in your memory, in your body, in the texture of ordinary moments, in those small quiet seconds when it rises up without any warning at all. And now that he has reached back out, everything you thought you had gently and carefully set aside is wide awake again, present and pulsing. It is full of questions you haven't spoken out loud yet, and feelings you thought time had softened over the months. That is not weakness in any form. That is not failure on your part. That is the biology of real human attachment working exactly the way it was designed to work from the start. And before you make any decision, before you reply to him, before you close the door or open it wider, before you decide what his return actually means for your life, you deserve to fully understanding what is truly happening beneath the surface. Not what fear is telling you in the moment, not what longing wants it to mean, not what hope is whispering softly. Comment silence if you've ever been left with months of no contact and then he suddenly returned. The first reason is one of the most humbling truths in relationship psychology. When he went quiet and the silence settled in, he believed moving on would be easier than expected. He imagined the distance would become relief. The silence would feel like freedom, and life ahead would be better. For a while, he truly convinced himself he had made the right choice. But reality slowly pulled apart that story. The life he imagined without you did not unfold the way he expected. The peace he hoped for never fully arrived. The freedom felt emptier than he thought. And the something better he believed was waiting never appeared the way he pictured it. What he expected and what he experienced became two very different things. Psychology calls this the contrast effect. After leaving a meaningful emotional connection, people often compare every new experience to what they once had. Every conversation is measured against the depth of yours, every new connection against your warmth, and every moment of closeness against the bond you shared. And when nothing quite measures up, not really, not fully, not in the way that counted most, the mind begins a slow and reluctant return to what was known. Not dramatic or loud in nature, not always even fully conscious at first, just a quiet, steady, building recognition that what he walked away from was never just a starting point in his life. It was a standard, the emotional standard that stayed with him. Everything else would forever be measured against it in his experiences. He is not back because some new option let him down badly. He is back because your presence set an emotional bar that nothing else in those months of silence could come close to reaching at all. The second reason goes deeper than thought, deeper than any conscious decision he made or any rational choice he believed he was making at the time. Your bond left a real and lasting mark on his nervous system, one that months of distance and silence simply could not erase completely. And this is not poetic language in any way. This is not romantic fiction or made-up ideas. This is how human connection actually functions inside the brain at a biological level in clear terms. When two people form a genuine emotional attachment, the brain responds by releasing a powerful flow of bonding chemicals over time. These chemicals do not simply create warm and pleasant feelings in the moment they appear. They literally restructure neural pathways in important ways. They wire two people's nervous systems toward each other in ways that feel from the inside like a pull between home and gravity. Type heart if this brought back all the complicated feelings you thought were gone. It feels like something familiar that the body already recognizes before the mind catches up fully. And here is the part that most people never hear about in these situations. The part that changes everything once you see it. Those neural pathways do not dissolve when contact stops suddenly. They do not fade quietly into the background and disappear without a trace. They remain beneath the surface quietly. They stay still, patient, but completely intact through the months. What wakes them back up is rarely anything dramatic or obvious to others. It is a song that arrives unexpectedly and carries a feeling he cannot quite name or explain right away. A place with a particular quality of light that brings something back to mind. A quiet evening with a specific and familiar kind of emptiness sitting in it deeply. A dream he did not choose to have and woke up unsettled by its presence. Months of silence do not erase what the nervous system has already learned to recognize as significant and real in life. They only pause it for some time. They only press it down temporarily beneath the surface of daily routines. And when it rises back up, and it always does eventually, the pull toward you does not feel like a rational or calculated choice he planned. It feels like something his body already knows well. It feels like something his system was always going to return to in the end. He didn't just think about you occasionally during those months apart. His mind kept finding its way back to you in ways that may have genuinely surprised even him at times. The third reason is one of the most quietly devastating truths in all of relationship psychology, and it is the one that hits the deepest inside. He has finally, fully seen what losing you actually costs a person. There is a particular kind of clarity that only comes with real absence over time. Not the absence of tension or conflict or difficulty in general, but the absence of you specifically and all that came with you. Your particular warmth that felt safe. The way you listened without judgment and without keeping score in conversations. The specific way you saw him as he was. Not the polished and carefully constructed version he showed to the world around him, but the uncertain, honest, unguarded, real version that lived underneath all of that. The version he rarely let anyone else see in his life. Comment attachment if you know the nervous system pull is real when he reaches out. Men who return after long stretches of silence have often spent that entire time going through what researchers describe as emotional substitution in their experiences. The slow and painful and humbling discovery that what a specific person gave you cannot simply be located somewhere else easily. Type yes if you want me to break down every true reason he returns after silence. It cannot be replaced by someone new in the same way. It cannot be recreated by effort or time or distraction he may have tried during the quiet period. Maybe in new connections that started with real promise and then quietly flattened out and went cold over weeks. Maybe in throwing himself into distraction, into movement, into staying busy every day, into telling himself every single morning that he was completely fine without it. And then the understanding arrived for him clearly. Sometimes slowly, like a tide coming in gently. Sometimes all at once, like a door swinging open without warning in his mind. That what you gave him was not general or ordinary. It was not something that could be substituted or replicated by others. It was not interchangeable with what anyone else could offer him. It was entirely specific to who you are as a person, to the quality of your presence that stood out, to the depth of your attention that mattered, to the rarity of what you naturally and genuinely brought to his life each time. The grief of understanding too late what something was truly worth is one of the most powerful and lasting emotional forces that exists in human experience. That weight is what is behind his return after all this time. He is not back lightly or without thought. He is not back casually as if nothing happened. He is back carrying the full, humbling, heavy awareness of exactly what the silence truly cost him in the end. The fourth reason lives not in what happened between you, but in what never did take place fully, in the conversation that was never completed between you two, in the words that were held back at the exact moment they should have been spoken out, in the honesty that never made it out into the open air. Psychology shows us clearly that unresolved emotional experiences do not simply fade with time the way we hope they will in our hearts. They do not quietly disappear into the past without leaving traces. They gather weight over the months. They accumulate in the background steadily. Every relationship that ends without full emotional closure carries what therapists describe as unfinished emotional business in the mind, a heavy residue of feeling that has nowhere to land properly, where there is no resolution to bring it any peace at last, no ending that allows it to fully rest in a calm way. For him, that unfinished business might live in an apology he never gave you properly, in acknowledgements that sat lodged in his chest for months and never made it into words that reached you, in a moment where he chose distance instead of honesty and has been quietly carrying the cost of that choice ever since then, even when he didn't fully name it as such in his thoughts. When a person holds this kind of emotional incompleteness for months on end, it does not loosen its hold easily. It does not dissolve away on its own. It builds beneath the surface of everything else in life. It becomes a persistent, quiet, steady pull that he cannot fully push away or silence, no matter what. Share this with someone who's dealing with a sudden return after months of no contact. His reaching back out after all this time is his nervous system finally demanding resolution that it cannot keep waiting for any longer. That need is entirely his to carry through. The weight of that unfinished business belongs to him and no one else in this story. What happens next is important to consider. Whether you offer resolution or whether you have already found your own peace and moved to a place where you no longer need his closure to feel whole, belongs completely and entirely to you and your path. And the fifth reason, this one deserves your most careful, most honest, most clear-eyed attention, because this one changes the equation in meaningful ways. He may have genuinely grown during the time apart. He may have genuinely changed in some important aspects. And not every return is strategy or a game. Not every long silence was carelessness or cruelty from his side. Some men go quiet not because they don't feel deeply inside, but because they don't yet know what to do with how deeply they feel those emotions. They pull back because real vulnerability frightens them in the moment. They go silent because true presence demands something they are not yet ready to give fully. They retreat not to hurt you on purpose, but because they don't yet know how to stay without losing themselves in the fear of it all. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the distance does what closeness in a relationship never could achieve. It forces a real reckoning with self. A confrontation with who you are when you remove the comfort of connection and sit alone with the full weight of your own choices. Psychology tells us that genuine change rarely happens in warmth and comfort alone. It happens in the uncomfortable, clarifying space of consequence, of loss, of being completely alone with the truth of things. If his return feels different in quality from before, if this hit deep, comment worth below. You deserve to be chosen, not just returned to. If there is something softer in it now, something more accountable in his approach, something more grounded and genuinely present that stands out, that is worth your attention in the situation. Not because you owe him anything at all, but because you deserve to make your decision from a place of full clarity and truth, not from old patterns that repeat, from your worth, not from your wounds that linger. Here is what you need to hold on to strongly. No matter what you decide in the end, his return is not proof that you need him back. It is proof that you were worth returning to after the time passed. And those two things are not the same in any way. They are not even close to the same reality. You did not become more valuable when that message arrived out of nowhere. You were already this valuable from the beginning. You have always been this valuable in your own right. His silence was never a measurement of your worth as a person. It was a measurement of his readiness at the time, his capacity to handle things, his fear that held him back. Not one moment of that silence was about you being too much in any sense. Too emotional, too present, too loving, too deep for someone. You were never the problem in this story at all. In loving someone with your whole heart, without armor to protect it, without conditions placed on it, without holding back the best of who you are as a person, that was never your mistake to regret. That was your gift to give freely. And gifts of that quality are rare in this world we live in. They are the kind of rare that a person only fully understands after spending months living in the absence of it, after trying to replace it with other things and discovering they simply couldn't do so, after the contrast became impossible to ignore any longer in daily life. You deserve to be chosen clearly and fully, not retrieved as an afterthought, not returned to because everything else fell short in comparison. You deserve someone who looks at who you are and chooses you clearly, consistently, every single day, without months of silence in between those moments, without the cost to your peace of mind. Whatever door you open or choose to keep closed in this situation, let that decision come from your worth as a person, from the steady, unshakable knowledge that you are someone worth choosing every single day, without the silence interrupting. If this reached something real inside you, if you found your own story somewhere in these words, please hit that like button and join this community for more insights. Subscribe so the next insight finds you before you even knew you needed it in your life. You are not alone in this, and you never have to face it all by yourself again.